We would be honored if you would join us.
All right, welcome back, everybody, for part 3 of episode 3 of the joint podcast between Silver Conundrum and Expat Stacker. Each week or so, a new part of an episode will be released on one of our channels, and in the next week on the other person's channel, and so on. So don't miss anything. Make sure you subscribe to Expat Stacker and Silver Conundrum. And our returning guest, our first guest ever, is Gold Baby Gold, the Golden Gun. How are you doing, sir?
Gold baby gold. I'm doing great, mate. It's great to have been with you this last few weeks. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. It's been a true honor and a pleasure having you. Everybody on YouTube that comes across your channel loves what you're doing. You're getting lots of shout out, lots of love, and we got to get that subscriber count bumped up so everybody can get the awesome information, the great videos that you do, and everybody can share in that. So we are hoping that Silver Conundrum is doing all right. He's been sick. He's been working a lot of overtime. A hurricane took out the power at his house. So we're hoping that he's going to be pulling through and doing all right. He's a good guy and a tough guy. And so I'm sure he will pull through, but we're hoping that he's going to do just fine. And he'll be back hopefully in the next one. I'm sure there'll be some time where I'm not available or whatever. So he's going to get my back then. So, but yeah, we were planning to have all three of us talking, but life happens. So, but he wanted the show to go on, and so we're going to do that. In part 1 of this episode, we talked about who is Golden Gun. You introduced us to yourself. You talked about how you got into stacking and what you're into and your background a little bit and stuff. That was very interesting. If you guys haven't seen that, go check it out. Part 2 was equally as interesting. It was very interesting to learn about stacking in Australia, and we shouted out a few channels and stuff. So go check out those first 2 parts of this episode. And also, before we start the discussion, please note the disclaimer: Expat Stacker, Silver Conundrum, and the Golden Gun are not financial advisors or experts. Investing is risky and comes with the chance that you could lose money. Talk to a licensed professional before making any decision about what to do with your money. This video and all of the contents on our channels is for entertainment and educational purposes only, and should not be taken as financial advice. All right, and now in this third part, we're going to be focusing on setting strategy. So for this part, the aim is to just share what we personally do, and hopefully it helps others to maybe pick up a few ideas or whatever, reflect on what they do and maybe tweak it a little bit. And everybody is stacking for different reasons, and everybody has different personal circumstances. Everybody has different rules and things that govern what they do in their specific locations. So some of this stuff might not apply to you. Like in previous episodes, you talked about, or the previous part of this episode, you talked about like an 8% tax on something that's not 4/9 fine gold. And for me, I've talked in the past ad nauseum about how I don't stack constitutional because it just wouldn't be worth it. It's looked at as like a special novelty item out here in Korea, right? Whereas in the United States, it's just, literally in the it's still in circulation. You know what I mean? So like they're just spoiled over there with that. Everybody has different reasons for stacking and financial circumstances and so on and so forth. So, we're not telling you guys what to do. We're not telling you what not to do. We're just going to talk a little bit about what we do for ourselves. And, we want to hear about what other people do in the comment sections. And, if you got any tips for us as well, we'd love to hear about it. So I'll just start off talking about myself actually. So for me, part of the reason, I mean, the main reason why I stack is because of, I want to protect my wealth, and I want to have something for when I retire. It's a way to help me save money, and it's also something that I hope to pass on to my children, the next generation. So intergenerational wealth, a way to save without being obliterated by inflation, and privacy and security and stuff. So that would probably be another reason for me. So I have a very long-term view and horizon for myself. And because I'm planning to continue to stack and acquire all the way until when I retire. And then, that's very, very far down the line. If you were to ask me in 2019 what's going to happen in 2020, there's no freaking way I could have guessed what was going to happen, right? So who knows? But that's my plan. That's why I do it. And so in retirement, if I need to, then I will, start liquidating some of my stack. But I do have other things. I have a pension, a public pension, private pension. I have some investments in the stock market that I'm building up over time. I do hope to have a, real estate investment at some point, and I have some other types of investments as well on the side. And then I have this precious metal. So we also in part one talked about the need to have assets in different classes, and you talked about how originally you got into real estate. So I talk now about why I stack and what different types of asset classes I'm into. And so could you maybe you're just going to recap, but I mean, what's the main reason you stack, and how what are some of the other asset classes that you have? So you have the real estate. Do you have like a pension, or what else? What else do you have, and why do you stack?
Yeah, sure. So I've got the real estate I talked about in episode 1. That's just an investment property, residential 4-bedroom house. I bought back in 2009. And I've got a pension. We call it superannuation in Australia. I think it's the same, or our equivalent of a 401k that they have in America, where it's a forced percentage of your income from your job that goes into a retirement fund that you can't touch until you're at retirement age.
I think that would be the Social Security in the United States. 401k is optional.
Okay.
What it is so Social Security, you have no choice, right? But 401k is like an employee match program. So if you choose to contribute part of your paycheck to a 401k, then the employer, the business, contributes an equal amount, and there are different tax rules for that. So you're not going to be like heavily punished and taxed for saving for retirement. So, but the national program is like the Social Security program. So this is two little maybe separate things. But so superannuation, I don't know if I pronounced that correctly, probably more like Social Security. So you got that. You get the property.
You pronounce it right, and yeah, thank you very much for that info. Superannuation is kind of like both, because it's the forced amount that goes in there from your income, and also you can put extra into it if you want, and it's got different tax advantages and things like that for your retirement. I've got the property, and I have been a little bit in shares in the past, but I'm not so much at the moment, to be honest. I'm kind of scared of where we are headed right now. And I don't like to have too much of my money in shares right now, just at this time. So the precious metals is kind of my saving separate to the property for the moment.
Yeah, right. Risk adverse, definitely at this time, yeah, for sure.
That's right. I do like to have a backup of fiat. That makes me feel safe. You don't want to have too much fiat, because obviously it's losing its value as they print and create fiat, create money like crazy. But you want to have a nice little safety net, I guess, that gives me the good feeling that I can go and do other things knowing that that's there. If anything crops up or happens, I've got that available. But at the moment, I'm trying to save mainly on top of that with the precious metals, with the gold, with the silver, even a little bit of platinum now as well.
Yeah. You know, the way I look at a lot of these different asset classes is, I mean, you know, we hear these like financial terms thrown around all the time, you know, so whenever there's like these buzzwords and stuff, sometimes they lose value. But what I mean by different asset class is that it has value for different reasons, and it also has different varying levels of risk, and it also has different varying levels of returning value. It has a different purpose as well. Like the purpose, in my view, of stacking gold and silver is to, like I said, preserve my wealth, to protect me from inflation, as you just mentioned. And it's not as risky as the stock market. There's also the physical nature of it, and there's also little to no counterparty risk. So that's what makes something a different asset class. A property has very, very high value, right? You invest a lot in it, but it's also very illiquid compared to something like cash or gold or even stocks, right? It takes a longer time to sell it. And that also applies to different types of bullion. You know, it's going to take you a lot longer to sell a 100-ounce silver bar, presumably, unless you get lucky and find someone right away, than it would a 1-ounce coin. So when it comes to the stacking strategy and when it comes to looking at these different asset classes, I kind of like to look at it as different levels or layers of security, right? There's so many different things that we can compare it to. I did a video in the past where I compared it. I put some gold out onto a chessboard because different chess pieces have different abilities, right? And different purposes, right? Like you're not trying to win the game with a pawn, right? And it's kind of the same thing with these different asset classes. That's how I look at it. Or, you know, I could compare it also to a prison. There are different levels and layers of security in a prison. You've got the cell, you've got the prison walls, you've got fencing in between, you've got guards, and so on and so forth, right? So all these different types of bullion, different sizes, different denominations, coming from different countries, and so on and so forth, they can play a different role for your stack. And like, so for example, I'm not really a big fan of Canadian, Royal Canadian mint stuff. I don't have anything from them, actually. I do like their 10-ounce bars and their 1-ounce gold bars, but I don't have anything from them. Now, when I get my stack to a certain point, I might actually start stacking Canadian maple leaf coins, because I would use that as a buffer to protect the rest of my stack. So that way, when I sell something, I have something very liquid, very well known, and I won't have to sell the other stuff that I like. So that's kind of how I look at, you know, specifically my stack, as well as like overall portfolio of different asset classes. Now, in terms of setting a stacking strategy, I think there's a difference between when you first get started, what you need to do, and then when you're kind of established and you kind of know what's going on and things like that. And I mean, honestly, we could sit here all day and talk about strategy because there's so many things to consider. But basically, what I'm going to do is just give like a little crash course of what I do every year, and how it helps me to stack and stay disciplined and, you know, stay committed to my goals. And because, like I said, this is like a long-term endeavor for me, so I need to be very disciplined and focused. And it's so easy to get sidetracked when it comes to this stacking stuff. Actually, Silver Conundrum on the last episode talked about, he compared himself to a ferret, where he's like, he sees something shiny over here, he's like, oh, I won't get that, and then a new coin comes out, he's like running over to get that. You know? He's got that amazing.
Silver Conundrum knows what he's doing, though. He seems to put out videos where he buys silver in bulk, cheap silver, rounds, hundreds of them, And then separately, he goes out and indulges his dragon collection, and then back to bulk rounds and the silver. He knows what he's doing.
Oh yeah, absolutely, definitely. He knows what he's doing. But no matter how disciplined you are, I don't care who you are. It's like so easy to get distracted because they have coins for everything, man. Like they have coins for honestly, they have coins for Korean figure skaters. They have coins with Disney characters. They have coins with Marvel characters. They have every single thing you can imagine. I saw a coin that has cheetah DNA in it. Literally. I'm not even joking. I'm gonna put it up on the screen right now for people to see. It literally has cheetah DNA in it. So I'm saying they have coins for everything. So it's so easy to get distracted and knocked off course, right? When you're doing this for such a long time. So you've gotta have goals and you've got to stay committed. That's basically my point. But it is really easy and tempting to get distracted. So what I tend to do is at the beginning of or towards the end of every year, I take a look at how things have changed over the past year. Inflation, for example, right now food is becoming more expensive in South Korea. I then take a look at my expected income over the next year. I usually break it down in just financial annual year, and I look at with the expectation that I will be earning more over time as I get older. I've kind of broken it down into three big main parts, like the short term, which is probably like the next 5 years, and then the midterm, which would be like maybe 10, 15 years down the line, and then the longer term, which is everything else after that. And so, I have these kind of three segments, and then I break it down into 1 year. What am I looking at in terms of expenses, and what's my expected income going to be? And then I break it down like kind of on a month-to-month basis and see what I can currently do with current spot prices, and try to set a goal, a manageable, challenging, but attainable goal. I don't want it to be, too easy, but I also don't want it to be too difficult to where I wouldn't be able to do it. And after I do that, then I start doing research about what's going on with the supply, what's going on with the miners. And I did a video about this in the beginning of 2020, where I set my goals, I said what they were, and then I did a market overview, and I talked about instability, and I talked about the trade war that was going on, and global conflict and violence being on the rise, and how there's fewer and fewer gold discoveries going on, and how all these different markets are being affected by those things. How some of the mining corporations are now finding it more economical to do a merger and acquisition instead of spending the money on discovery for a new mine, because they've been pouring more and more money into it and finding fewer and fewer mines. So it's just cheaper because a mine is a depreciating asset. Once you discover the mine and set it up and start mining from it, from there, its value only goes down until you extract everything from it, right? So they're finding it cheaper just to buy other companies who have existing mines. I talk about some other economic changes that are going to affect precious metals market, especially with silver and copper, the industrial effects of that, the rise of electronic vehicles, and what governments are doing. So I went really into detail with it. So I do all this research, I plan everything, and then what I do is, what can I do comfortably, still challenging, not too easy, but I know I can do it. And then I just raise the bar just a little bit, right? Just a little bit, just to make it a little bit more challenging and out of my range for where it is. And then I figure out, okay, how am I going to maybe cut some costs in my personal life, maybe eliminate a few subscription services, or, have a little bit less, eating out or something like this. And then I also think about, I try to do a little extra work, on the side, in order to attain my goals. And so far, it is very difficult to predict what's going to happen. I don't think anybody could have predicted the coronavirus thing, you know. Also, I was forced to move. I wasn't able to predict that. That worked out in my favor because I ended up moving into a cheaper place. So things changed. So what I also do is 6 months into the year, I kind of look at what I have been able to accomplish, you know. I should be, if it's 6 months into the year, I should be 50% to my goal. Now, am I 50% to my goal? Am I further along, or am I lagging behind? And what are the reasons for that? If the price has gone up to where it's like unattainable, then do I need to reevaluate and adapt my goals? You know, I tend to do that in the middle of the year. And then, you know, this year I've pretty much hit all of my goals except for one, which is like a copper goal, but I'm not too bummed about that. It's just because of the restrictions of every all the bullion, you know, flowing in and out. It hasn't been as available for me, but I've hit my gold goal and I hit my silver goal. And so from there, I have set little challenges for myself. So I'm doing kind of like for fun, 100-piece gold challenge, and for the silver, I'm doing I'm trying to collect the Lunar 2 series, and maybe a little other fun little pieces here and there, more collectible stuff. But that's only because I only did that because I hit my gold goals for the year. One other quick thing I forgot to mention about like when I was setting my goals is I set like amount of ounces. So like I could say like maybe 2 ounces or 3 ounces of gold, right? I say that like certain percentage of it has to be generic or government backed or coins or, you know, a full ounce or fractional. So I also consider that because like I was explaining before, you have to consider those things when you're deciding what to buy. So basically, that is how I do it. If you want a more detailed explanation, you can go check out that video on my channel where I set out my goals for 2020 and do my market overview. I'm going to be doing that again in a couple of months. And explaining my goals for 2021. I also do a review after 6 months and a review after 12 months to see how I've done. So that's basically how I do it. That's just my way of doing it. And I've seen plenty of other people on YouTube about how they set goals, whether it's a small budget or a large budget. I've seen like $10 a week challenge, all these different ideas, you know, really great ideas. And I've seen a few other YouTubers recently make some videos about stacking strategies. So I wanted to ask you about that. Do you have like a specific process, or do you have just some overall kind of philosophy or strategy where it may be a little more loose, or you know, how do you go about having kind of goals and setting goals and working towards them?
Wow, that's a lot that you covered there. That's really, really great. And yeah, I mean, I also want to point out, you know, definitely writing down, having specific goals, you know, that are measurable, and achievable is really, really important. Whether the way I do it is as stringent as you, or more loose, I guess that's up for interpretation, because I'm constantly I'm constantly looking at what I'm doing and trying to rebalance all the time. I mean, I'll be saying to myself, okay, I know I want to get gold, and I want to get silver. Recently, okay, I want to get some platinum, and I'll be constantly reviewing and looking at my stack and saying to myself, okay, I'm too heavy in this. I don't have enough of this. I need more of that. And that pushes me to rebalance it, and relook at what I want to do. Even with the individual pieces, you mentioned at the start of that, the analogy from your video where you had everything on the chessboard. That's right. All the pieces have different properties, and you can do different things with them. So, I mean, on the one hand, I might look at sizes of my pieces, which I talked about in my first few videos. I like to have a different range of sizes. If I get too much small 1/10 and 1/20th pieces, I think to myself, okay, I need some more 1/4 ounce. I need some more 1 ounce. I'm pretty happy just collecting gold almost ongoing, because it seems to be a lot more stable as a metal. With silver, as I mentioned in the previous episode, it can be more volatile, and it does take up a lot of room. So I'm more careful. I bought quite a bit last year. I bought some different kilo bars of silver when silver was a lot cheaper. And I'm watching that like a hawk, looking to add a bit more of that. In terms of how much am I buying and budgeting for it, I make sure I've got separately, not in my main direct bank account, a good amount of fiat that really makes me feel safe, and it makes me able to feel comfortable playing with and doing a lot more otherwise. So as long as I've got separate that amount of fiat there, I can run my finances a bit leaner. I can, at the start of the month, go out and make a nice large fiat purchase, and then I can race to be able to cover my bills and the rent and the mortgage and stuff like that, because I know that I do have that fiat behind me somewhere else, in order to be able to do that. But sure, I mean, you want everything almost. There's all these great pieces and collector pieces, and you're thinking, will platinum do this? Will silver do this? Will gold do this? Do I have enough of it? Am I going to be able to take advantage of it? I mean, I just try to do my best balancing it, re-looking at it all the time. And balancing out my stack as much as I can. I look at my stack and I say it's weighted too much here, it's weighted too much there, and just trying to fix that up on my next purchases. If I buy some collector pieces that are a little bit more numismatic and maybe going to be harder to sell down the line, I think to myself, okay, that's a little bit of a worry. Now we need to add a whole lot more stuff that's going to be easier to sell down the line. Now we need to get more of things that are more popular and more liquid. But yeah, it's more of a constant process of evaluation, and reweighting. So that's pretty much how I do it. I guess it's loose in terms of it's not always set every 6 months. But it might be considered more stringent because it's a constant evaluation.
Yeah, right. And I think that is a really good strategy as well. Yesterday, so I talk about this channel from Australia, 3Ts, through this time, and I was really impressed with him because he talked about his strategy of being. He had this plan where he wanted to buy a 10-ounce bar, but then he found some American Silver Eagles that he said, the price was very rare to be at where it was, and also he finds it more difficult to find, U.S. minted coins. So he decided to go for that instead of the 10-ounce bar. And I just commented, I think you did the right thing, because he was kind of, he seemed like. It was a little. He said something like, "Let me know what you think about my decision to buy the Eagles instead of the bar." And I just commented and said, "Hey, I think adaptability is as important of a skill to have as setting goals and strategies and plans. You might have a plan, but then circumstances change, and you're able to." Adapt to them and make it work in your favor. And I think you just basically broke that down very well, where you have this kind of cushion, right, of fiat. And so you've got that established already. And so you're able to adapt to the circumstances a lot more easily because of that. So, I think that I think that, as I've said, since the beginning, and as we've mentioned several times, everybody has different circumstances and so on and so forth. One thing that you mentioned there that I hadn't really touched on was how it makes you feel to have that fiat built up. You feel comfortable, you feel good, you feel safe and secure to have that. And I think that is really an important aspect of this, the psychological aspect, you know. Silver Conundrum talked before in a previous episode about how he sold all his silver to pay off his house. And I say, like, how did that feel? Because that's huge, man. You know, I mean, we all get excited and happy when we do a unboxing or we get a piece that we've been waiting for a while. Imagine selling basically everything and paying off a house. I can't imagine the psychological impact that would have. And he described it as one of the best analogies I've ever heard of, like, you're being held underwater. That's how he felt, like being under debt, under that debt burden. And then you feel like you're about to pass out, and then you suddenly come up for air and gasp for air. I was like, man, that is such a great analogy. And Juice Stacker, by the way, was he got a question from a viewer, an email question about strategy setting recently. I think it was like October 10th or 11th. And he talked about making a consideration of what type of personality you have. So if you're a person who's very like even keel, and you don't make impulsive decisions, you're not very rash, right? Then long-term strategy might work better for you, and your level of security and comfort, that's also something to be really aware of. But if you're a person who's very impulsive and impatient, and people know themselves more or less, and if not, hey, maybe stacking is a great way to find out about that. Because basically the question he got was like, I'm a new stacker, should I start with 1 ounce, or should I do like quarter ounce or 10th ounce? The trade-off is how the extra premium you have to pay and so on. But there's other considerations in there. But one thing Juice mentioned was about your personality, and I was like, man, I left a comment like, I hadn't really thought about that before. I like Florida Stacker when he talks about like strategy and planning and stuff, because he's very like rational and really like data driven and fact based, and I'm very much the same way. I try to take all the emotion out of it. I mean, obviously when I get one of those dragon coin bars, I'm happy and I like it, and I do like to have fun. But in terms of setting strategy and stuff, like, I like to be very disciplined, and that's what works for me, like psychologically. And you just talked about like having more adaptability and in the short term, because you have that fiat built up. So that's really great. Actually, Silver Conundrum and I have talked in the past as well a little bit about stacking strategies, like becoming your own bank, and the reason for having different sizes and denominations and places to sell, and all those things also have to be considerations. Obviously, as I said, we could sit here for hours and hours talking strategy, but I think basically we had a very good discussion where I gave like my very detailed process. It takes a lot of work actually, but I also enjoy learning and getting informed about the markets and stuff. And you also have given your style and approach and philosophy and strategy, and I think it's great. I really hope that it's helpful for people. And if people have any questions for me or for you about strategy, or they have their own ideas about strategy, please leave it in the comments section. And don't forget to subscribe to Golden Gun and Expat Stacker and Silver Conundrum. Golden Gun, do you want to anything else to add?
Yeah, I just want to add that, the more you learn and you research in this, the more you actually can do. There's nothing wrong, and it probably is even better when you just stick to what's simple, even though, it can be tough to be that disciplined. If you can just buy simple things, or you're stacking for weight, then okay, you get your constitutional, your bars, or your cheaper rounds. But the more you learn, the more you can go into these different things and add them to your strategy. I mean, I'm not there yet, but some people can really buy some very expensive graded stuff and slab stuff, etc. and really get into the numismatics, because they're up to their, they can feel comfortable with that because they know what they're doing once they've researched and they've played in that field long enough. So the longer and the more you research and the more you get into it, and the more you see what people are buying and selling, the more you're able to branch out. Not that you should branch out too much, because you've got to be organized. But yeah, more learning and more knowledge helps you to be able to complicate things a little bit more if you want to.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I mean, the numismatic stuff, the collectible stuff, slabbed stuff, all of these different things, definitely you have to think about as you continue on with your stacking. And it is like a totally different ball game. You know what I mean? You have like these collectible pieces where, you might go to your local coin shop and they just say, yeah, I'll give you a spot for it. And it's like, well, I paid, X amount, way over spot. It for them, they don't want to hang on to it and find the right customer. So that wouldn't be the best place to sell it. So exit strategy is also really important, I guess like for this conversation, probably definitely focused on a little bit more of like acquisition strategy, but it's kind of, no pun intended, two sides of the same coin, because you do have to think about exit strategy when you're acquiring, right? Because whatever you have is what you're going to be selling. So definitely, probably a discussion that we also need to talk more about. We have talked a little bit about it before, but that's a really good point. I just got my first slabbed coin. The only thing I know about it is MS70 is the best. So I just made sure I went ahead and did that. It got me a MS70 Gold Buffalo early release from 2009, I think. But outside of that, I don't know. I did pay up for it as well. So, but I just tried to went with what I know and did a little research and, but I'm with you. I'm not there yet in terms of like flipping and, slabs and all this kind of stuff. So, I try to stick with like the basic stuff at first, and that's when I set my strategy. That's kind of like what the main chunk of it is. Like I want to get some bars and I want to get some American Silver Eagles, or this year that was very hard for me to find out here in Korea, so I ended up getting a few other different types of stuff. But I agree with you there. Getting some standard bullion that is highly liquid and will serve as the core of your stack, that's really important. So really good stuff, and I appreciate you've been stacking a bit longer than I have, so and so Conundrum more than both of us probably. So but it's great. It's really great to share the information and different perspectives and stuff. And I really appreciate you spending all the time to discuss this with us. And it's been an honor to have the Golden Gun as the first guest on our podcast. So I really, really appreciate it. Thank you so much. I can't say thank you enough.
No, man. It's been an honor being here with you and on this show. So thank you. It's been great. I wish Silver Conundrum could have been here as well. But thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, awesome. Great. All right. Everybody else, we hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, and we will catch you on the next one. Goodbye, everybody.